Hello, and welcome to Backdoor Historian. This is our very first story, our inaugural journey into the quiet corners of the past. If you have found your way here, we are so glad you have. Our mission on this channel is a simple one. We are not concerned with great battles or daring voyages or the clash of steel. We turn our attention away from the sharp edges of history and towards the quiet, rhythmic, and essential tasks that sustained a people. Tonight, for our first journey together, we travel back in time, back to the age of the Norsemen, the Vikings. But our story is not on the prow of a longship cutting through the waves. Our story is on the shore, inside the smoky warmth of a longhouse, where a different kind of magic was made. This is the story of the women who brewed, the alewives, the brewwives, the keepers of a tradition as old as the stones of the hearth. Their work was quiet, but it was vital. It was the heart of the home, the warmth in a cold climate, the substance of celebration, and the courage for long journeys. So find a comfortable position. Allow the weight of your body to settle. Release the day's concerns, and let your mind drift back to the shores of a fjord 1,000 years ago. Let us explore the slow, patient, and deeply essential world of the women who brewed beside Viking longships. There is nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to be. Simply rest and listen. Our story begins as so many stories do with water. Not the vast, unknowable salt water of the sea, but the sweet, cold, clear water of a stream. Imagine a woman, her name is not important for now. Let us think of her as the husfreyja, the lady of the house. Her hands, strong and capable, are dipped into the running water. The chill of it is familiar, a daily sensation. She is filling wooden buckets. They are heavy, made of dark, sturdy staves of oak bound with bands of willow or iron. The sound of the water filling the buckets is a gentle, rhythmic glug, a hollow sound that speaks of emptiness being filled. She does not rush. The stream has flowed this way for generations. It will flow this way tomorrow. This simple act of gathering water is the first step in a long, unhurried process. She carries the buckets back towards the longhouse. Her feet know the path without seeing it. It is a path worn smooth by the footsteps of her mother and her mother's mother. The path winds through damp, springy moss and past gray, lichen-covered stones. The air smells of pine needles, wet earth, and the distant, salty tang of the fjord. The longhouse stands ahead. It is not a grand or imposing structure from the outside. It is long, low, and curved like the overturned hull of a great ship. Its walls are timber, and its roof is thick with turf, a living blanket of green and brown that insulates it from the biting winds and the heavy snows of winter. A thin tendril of smoke, gray against the gray sky, rises from a hole in the roof. This is the only sign of the life within. She pushes open the heavy wooden door. It does not swing easily. It pivots on a simple pin, groaning softly like a waking giant. She steps from the cool, bright air outside into the warm, smoky dimness of the longhouse. Let your eyes adjust to the low light. The interior is one long, vast room. The air is thick but not unpleasant. It carries the scent of wood smoke, of drying herbs, of animal hides, and of the many people who live and sleep here. The only light comes from the central hearths and from the smoke hole directly above them in the high vaulted ceiling. The floor is packed earth, hard and cool underfoot. Down the center of the hall run the long fires, the hearths. They are simple, shallow pits lined with stones. The embers glow with a deep orange life, and above them a large iron cauldron hangs from a chain, steaming gently. This is the heart of the home. It is where food is cooked, where stories are told, where the family gathers for warmth and light. On either side of the central aisle are raised wooden platforms. These are the spaces for living, for sitting, for working, for sleeping. They are covered with furs and woven blankets. This longhouse is a world unto itself, a world of warmth and community shielded from the vast and often harsh world outside. The husfreyja carries her buckets of water to a dedicated space at one end of the longhouse. This is her domain. The brewing corner. It is not separate, but it is respected. Here the tools of her craft are kept. Large wooden tubs or tuns for mashing and fermenting. A collection of smooth, rounded river stones of various sizes blackened by fire. There are long wooden paddles for stirring and woven sacks filled with the essential ingredients. Today is a brewing day. The ale is running low, and a ship is due to return to the fjord within the fortnight. They will be thirsty. They will need the taste of home. Brewing is not a daily chore, but a cyclical, important event. It marks the time, and it provides for the future. The first ingredient after the water is the grain. The woman moves to a large wooden chest. Lifting the heavy lid, she releases the dry, wholesome scent of malted barley. The grains are pale and slightly sweet. This barley was grown in a small field, cleared and tilled with great effort. It was harvested by hand, with iron sickles dried in the sun and then malted. The malting process itself is a slow art. The barley grains were steeped in water, allowing them to begin to sprout, to germinate. This awakens the enzymes within the grain, the enzymes needed to convert the starches into fermentable sugars. Then, just at the right moment, the germination was halted by drying the grains with heat. This might have been done in the sun, or more likely in a special kiln, or simply on a cloth stretched above the hearth. The process gives the malt its characteristic flavor and its power to create ale. She scoops the malted barley into a sack. She also takes out a smaller portion of oats and perhaps a little rye. Each grain adds its own character. The barley provides the sweet, sugary foundation. The oats will give the ale a smooth, silky body. The rye a hint of spice. This is a recipe not written in a book, but held in memory, a legacy passed from mother to daughter. The next step is to crush the grain. She does not have a modern mill. She uses a saddle quern, an ancient tool. It is a large, slightly concave stone, the saddle, and a smaller loaf-shaped stone that fits in her hands, the rider. She pours a small amount of the mixed grains onto the saddle stone, and then the work begins. She kneels her body, finding a familiar rhythm. She pushes the rider stone forward and back across the grains. The sound is a soft, grating whisper, a shushing sound. Shh, shh. The grain breaks apart, crushed, but not turned to fine flour. It becomes a coarse grist. Forward and back. Forward and back. The movement is steady, repetitive. Her shoulders and back are strong. This is work she has done countless times. The sound of the quern is one of the background noises of the longhouse. It is a sound of provision, of preparation. Shh, shh. It is a soothing, constant sound. There is no need to hurry. The stones will do their work. The grain will yield. She crushes batch after batch of grain. The pile of fragrant grist grows beside her. The air around her fills with the dusty, sweet smell of the malt. As she works, the life of the longhouse continues around her. Children play with carved wooden toys. An older man mends a fishing net, his fingers gnarled but nimble. Another woman sits at a loom, the shuttle clicking back and forth, creating woolen cloth. These are the quiet rhythms of home. Once all the grain is crushed, she prepares the mash tun. This is a very large, wide wooden tub. She checks it for leaks, ensuring the staves are swollen and tight. Then she begins to fill it. First, the crushed grain, the grist. It falls into the tun with a soft, rustling sound. Now for the water. The water she fetched earlier is not used yet. That is for the boil. For the mash, she uses water that has been gently heated in the cauldron over the hearth. It must not be boiling. It must be just the right temperature. A temperature she knows not from a thermometer, but from the feel of the steam on her hand, from the experience of 100 prior brews. Too hot, and the precious enzymes in the malt will be destroyed. Too cold, and they will not work efficiently. She ladles the warm water into the mash tun over the grist. As the water meets the grain, a wonderful aroma rises. It is a sweet, porridge-like smell. A comforting, nourishing scent that fills her corner of the longhouse. She uses a long wooden paddle to stir the mixture, ensuring all the grain is saturated, that there are no dry clumps. The mixture, this thick porridge, is called the mash. Now comes a period of quiet waiting. The work of the enzymes begins. In the warm, wet environment of the mash tun, they diligently begin to break down the complex starches of the grain, converting them into simpler, sweeter sugars. This process is called saccharification. It is a quiet, invisible magic. The woman covers the mash tun with a thick woolen blanket, or perhaps some furs to keep the mash warm. And now she waits. For an hour, perhaps longer. There is nothing more to do for this stage. She can sit, rest her back, and listen to the sounds of her home. The crackle of the fire, the soft murmur of voices, the rhythmic click of the loom. Outside, the wind might be picking up whistling around the eaves of the longhouse. But inside it is warm. The sweet smell of the mash hangs in the air. The first crucial stage is complete. The foundation has been laid. The grain has offered up its sweetness. The next stage will require fire and stone and a different kind of patience. But for now, in the quiet of the longhouse, there is only the gentle, slow work of waiting. While she waits, our husfreyja might turn her attention to the other flavorings for the ale. Long before hops became the standard, brewers used a complex blend of herbs and spices to preserve their beer and add bitterness and aroma. This mixture was known as gruet. She has a collection of dried herbs hanging in bunches from the wooden beams above. Their scents mingle with the wood smoke. She reaches up and takes down a few sprigs. There is yarrow with its feathery leaves and a sharp, slightly medicinal scent. It was known to add a pleasant bitterness and was thought to have intoxicating properties. There is bog myrtle gathered from the damp, marshy lands near the fjord. Its leaves release a sweet, resinous aroma when crushed. It is a natural preservative helping the ale to last longer on its journey. She might add some heather flowers for a delicate honey-like sweetness, or perhaps some juniper berries for a clean pine-like sharpness. The recipe for her gruit is a secret of her family, a taste unique to her household. She crushes these herbs gently, not with the grinding quern, but perhaps with a smooth stone in a wooden bowl. The act releases their essential oils, a complex perfume of the wild lands that surround her home. This herbal blend will be added to the brew, later giving the final ale its distinctive character, its taste of place. The time of waiting for the mash is almost over. The longhouse is growing dimmer as the day outside begins to fade. The glow of the central fire becomes brighter, casting long, dancing shadows on the timber walls. The quiet, patient work continues. The ale is not yet ale. It is still just sweet, watery grain. But the transformation has begun. A slow, ancient alchemy guided by the sure and patient hands of the woman who brews. The first period of waiting is over. The enzymes in the mash have done their quiet work, turning starch into sugar. The husfreyja removes the insulating blankets from the mash tun. A wave of warm, sweet steam rises to greet her. The next stage is to separate the sweet liquid from the spent grains. The liquid is called the wort. The spent grains will not be wasted. They will be used as feed for the animals, or perhaps to make a simple, nourishing bread. In this world, everything has a purpose. She has a second large tub, the boiling tun. This one has a small tap near the bottom. To filter the wort, she creates a bed in the bottom of the mashed tun, using a lattice of twigs, often juniper or birch, covered with a layer of straw. This simple natural filter will hold back the solid grains while allowing the precious sugary liquid to pass through. Then begins a process called sparging. She uses the hot water she collected earlier, the water from the stream now heated in the cauldron. She ladles this hot water gently over the grain bed in the mash tun. The water trickles down through the grains, rinsing them of any remaining sugars and collecting at the bottom. She then opens the small tap, and a stream of warm, brown, sticky liquid, the wort, flows out. She catches it in smaller wooden buckets. The stream is slow. This process takes time and patience. Ladle the hot water over the top. Wait for it to seep through. Open the tap. Let the sweet wort drain out. Close the tap. Repeat. It is a rhythmic, meditative task. The longhouse is quiet, save for the crackle of the fire and the slow, steady trickle of the wort. Trickle, trickle, trickle. A sound of patient extraction. She transfers the collected wort bucket by bucket into the boiling tun. Once all the sweet liquid has been rinsed from the grains and collected, the mash tun is empty of its treasure. Now the boiling tun is the center of attention. It is filled with the unfermented ale, a substance as sweet as honeyed tea. But this wort is not yet ready. It must be boiled. Boiling serves several purposes. It sterilizes the wort, killing any wild bacteria or yeasts that might spoil the final ale. It concentrates the sugars, and it allows the flavors of the gruet to meld and infuse the liquid. How do you boil a large quantity of liquid in a wooden tub? You cannot place the tub directly on the fire. The Vikings had an ingenious solution: stones. Beside the central hearth, there is a pile of smooth, dense river stones. They have been sitting in the heart of the fire for hours, glowing with a dull, menacing red. They hold an immense, intense heat. These are the brewing stones. Using a pair of long-handled iron tongs, the woman's husband or one of her sons might help with this part. It requires strength and care. He carefully plucks one of the glowing red stones from the fire. It drips sparks. He moves quickly and deliberately to the boiling tun, and then he plunges the stone into the wort. The effect is immediate and dramatic, yet controlled. A loud, explosive hiss. A great cloud of steam erupts, billowing up to the smoky rafters. The wort froths and churns violently, instantly, coming to a furious, rolling boil around the stone. Shh. The sound is immense, a captured thunderclap, but it quickly subsides. The stone has given all its heat to the liquid. Its glow is gone. The man uses the tongs to lift the now dark, cool stone from the tun and places it back into the fire to reheat. Then he takes another glowing stone from the fire and repeats the process. Plunge, hiss, steam, boil, sss. The longhouse fills with sweet-smelling steam. This is a powerful primal process. Fire and water, stone and wood all working together. It is a noisy, steamy, and hot part of the brew day. But it is a controlled power. Stone after stone is plunged into the wort, keeping it at a steady, rolling boil. It is during this boil that the husfreyja adds her carefully prepared gruit, the blend of herbs. She sprinkles the crushed yarrow, bog myrtle, and heather into the churning, boiling liquid. The heat releases their aromatic oils, and their bitter preservative and flavorful compounds dissolve into the wort. The smell in the longhouse changes. The sweet, grainy scent is now joined by a complex, herbal, spicy aroma. The signature of her ale is being created. The boil continues for an hour or more. Stone after stone, the cycle repeats, plucking the hot stone from the fire, the careful walk, the plunge, the hiss, the boil, retrieving the cooled stone and placing it back in the fire. It is a rhythm of intense energy and focused work. After the boil is complete, another period of waiting begins, and this is one of the most critical. The wort is now a sterilized, bittered, sugary liquid, but it is scaldingly hot. Before the final, most magical ingredient can be added, the wort must cool. If it cools too slowly, there is a risk of infection from wild airborne yeasts or bacteria. It must be cooled as quickly as possible. This might be done by placing the large tun near the open door of the longhouse, allowing the cool night air to wash over it. In winter, they might even take buckets of the wort outside and set them in a snowdrift, the intense cold of the snow drawing the heat out rapidly. Imagine the scene. The main work of the day is done. The longhouse is settling into the evening. The fire in the hearth is burning lower. The boiling tun, full of dark, fragrant wort, sits cooling. The husfreyja watches over it. She is tired, but her work is not yet finished. She waits for the wort to cool to the right temperature. Again, she uses her senses, not a device. She might dip a clean finger in. It must be no warmer than body temperature. It must feel just slightly warm or even cool to the touch. This is the perfect temperature to welcome the final living ingredient, the one that will turn this sweet tea into ale. This ingredient is the yeast. The Vikings did not understand microbiology, but they understood tradition and results. Their yeast, often called kveik, was a living heirloom. It was not a powder from a packet. It was a culture of yeast, a family of microorganisms that had been passed down from mother to daughter for generations. After each brew, some of the thick, creamy foam from the top of the fermenting ale would be collected. This foam, rich with yeast, would be saved. It might be smeared onto a wooden stick or ring, which was then hung up to dry. The yeast would go dormant, waiting. Or it might be stored in a small wooden box, a living culture kept safe until the next brew day. This kveik was special. It was a complex blend of many different yeast strains adapted over centuries to their specific environment. It was hardy. It could ferment at warmer temperatures than many other yeasts, and it worked very, very quickly. It imparted its own unique flavor to the ale, often with notes of fruit and spice. The husfreyja takes her family's kveik. Perhaps it is a wooden ring caked with the dried yeast of the last brew. She dips this ring into a small amount of the cooled wort, waking the yeast up, rehydrating it. Then, when the entire batch of wort in the large tun has reached the perfect lukewarm temperature, it is time for the pitching. This is a moment of quiet reverence. The woman takes her awakened yeast culture and pours it into the large tun of cooled wort. She gives the mixture one last gentle stir with her clean wooden paddle. She is introducing life into the liquid. She is entrusting her sweet, carefully prepared wort to these invisible ancient organisms. She covers the tun once more, not to keep it warm, but to keep it safe from dust and insects. And now the slowest magic begins. The magic of fermentation. Her work for the day is truly done. She has gathered the water, crushed, the grain, heated, the mash, boiled the wort with stones, and pitched the yeast. Now she must cede control. She must let nature and the secret legacy of her family's yeast do the rest. She can finally rest. She might eat a simple meal of bread and cheese and a little of the ale from the previous batch. She sits by the glowing embers of the fire, her body tired, but her mind at peace. The longhouse is quiet now. Most of the family is asleep on the platforms wrapped in their furs. The only sound is the gentle sigh of the wind outside, and soon, if she listens very, very closely, a new sound will begin. A soft, gentle bubbling, a quiet whisper. Blop, blop. The yeast has awakened. It is consuming the sugars in the wort and creating two wonderful things, alcohol and carbon dioxide. The ale is coming to life. For the next few days, the longhouse will be filled with this gentle living sound. The quiet, constant work of fermentation. The slow transformation from wort to ale is underway. A process of patience, tradition, and quiet magic, guided by the woman who brews. For several days, the longhouse has been filled with the gentle sounds and smells of fermentation. The husfreyja has watched over the fermenting tun. At first the bubbling was vigorous, a thick rocky foam or krausen forming on the top of the liquid. This was the peak of the yeast's activity. The smell in the air was fruity and sharp. Now, after 3 or 4 days, the bubbling has subsided. It has slowed to a gentle occasional sigh. The foam has fallen back into the ale. The yeast has consumed most of the available sugars. Its work is largely done. The transformation is almost complete. The sweet wort is now ale, öl as they would call it. It is time to move the finished ale to vessels for storage and serving. This is done with care. The goal is to leave the thick layer of sediment, the tired yeast, and other particles that have settled at the bottom of the fermentation tun behind. Using a ladle or a simple siphon made from a hollowed-out reed, she carefully transfers the new ale into smaller wooden casks or large clay jugs. The ale is a cloudy amber color. It is not the clear, filtered beer we might know today. It is a living, unfiltered drink full of nourishment. Of course, she must taste it. It is her right and her responsibility as the brewer. She ladles a small amount into a wooden cup. She looks at its color in the dim light of the longhouse. She inhales its aroma. It smells of baked bread, of the earthy sweetness of the malt, with the spicy herbal notes of the gruit floating over the top. Then she tastes it. It is not overly strong, but it is warming. There is a slight residual sweetness from the malt balanced by the gentle bitterness of the yarrow and bog myrtle. It is smooth from the oats and it tastes alive. It tastes of the land of the grain, from the field of the water, from the stream of the herbs, from the bog. It tastes of her home. She nods slowly. It is good. It is ready. The timing is perfect. A horn sounds from the watcher's post on the hill overlooking the fjord. A long, mournful, but welcome sound. A ship has been sighted. The longship is returning. The atmosphere in the longhouse shifts. There is a quiet, purposeful energy. The work of the past weeks now has an immediate focus. The returning sailors will be tired, hungry, and thirsty. They will have been at sea for weeks, surviving on dried fish and stale water. They will be dreaming of the comforts of home, and the most immediate comfort will be a horn of fresh, nourishing ale. The husfreyja directs the filling of several large water skins with the new ale. These will be taken down to the shore. Other women are preparing food, a large stew in the cauldron, fresh bread baking on hot stones near the fire. Let us imagine the scene at the fjord's edge. The longship, its magnificent dragon-head prow cutting silently through the calm water, glides towards the shore. Its single large square sail has been lowered. The sound of dozens of oars, dipping and pulling in perfect unison, carries across the water. The men at the oars are weary. Their faces are weathered by sun and sea spray. As the ship's keel scrapes onto the gravel of the beach, a quiet cheer goes up from the people waiting on the shore. There are no grand speeches. There are reunions. Children run to their fathers. Wives greet their husbands with a nod and a quiet word. And the ale is there. The horns are filled. The wooden drinking horns polished smooth by countless hands. A horn of ale is passed to each sailor. They drink deeply. It is more than just a drink to quench a thirst. It is a symbol. It is the taste of the land, the taste of safety, the taste of community. It is the taste of the work of their women waiting for them at home. It washes the salt from their throats and the weariness from their bones. It signifies the end of the voyage and the return to the warmth of the hearth. That evening, there is a feast in the longhouse. The long tables are set up in the central aisle. The hall is crowded warm and bright with the light of the fires and extra tallow lamps. The air is thick with the smell of roast meat, fresh bread, and the new ale. The ale is served in large drinking horns passed from hand to hand down the tables. It loosens the tongues of the sailors who tell stories of their journey of gray whales and distant shores.